Today I'm gonna do a May flip through of my Hobonichi Cousin. Since May has ended, I thought it would be a nice time to do this. And if you're familiar with my Hobonichi Cousin, it's not really, it's very minimal and functional. So there's not a lot of, stickers or illustrations that I can show you. So I don't know how interesting this will be, but I'll just update you on the system and how I'm using it, and especially when we get to the daily pages, just how that is getting on. I'm still using the yearly calendar the same way that I did in the beginning, which is marking some personal dates. Some of these are deadlines for different projects. And the yearly index I used as an index, as a lot of people do. I explained this in my functional video, my functional system video, but I use these markers to tell me if something that I've indexed is for reference, or if it's a project that's already completed, or whatever the status of that project is. And for example, in my reading journal, I mark the books that I've completed in this row, and reference pages like to read lists, or here is just a spread on a series that I've been meaning to read, so that's also a reference page. And there are also these markers with the chevron sign that marks that that page continues on a different non-consecutive page, which is a problem that I was having in my old notebooks, where notes will be scattered across the book with unrelated things in between. And the system that I've figured out here is meant to mitigate that, but I still expect it to happen sometimes, and there are a few, like here when I started reading a book and then I took a break and read some other ones and then continued on a different page that's a few pages later. Hope that makes some sense. On the bottom I used to put the name of these categories, but I've moved that up here because I'm using the different months for different categories of notes, and down here I'm using for project planning. So what I have to do in this month, for example. And I use an erasable pen for this because my plans change and I just want to be able to erase and put something new in. For example, I put this project here originally, but I decided that I couldn't do it in time, and I just moved it a couple months down and filled this month with something that's more pressing. So this is going really well. I guess I'll get more into this when I get into the daily pages, but I'm a teensy bit worried that I'm running out of pages. Like, it's only been a month and my reading journal has filled up basically most of the September pages, and that's fine. I'll just, keep going, and there are these extra 3 months that I haven't really allocated to any specific category. But yeah, we'll see how I get on. It seems impossible that I'll really run out of pages on the Cousin, but we'll see. Right. I use these magnetic bookmarks to keep track of where I am in the monthly and in the weekly, but I keep the monthly one to flip back and forth between the index and the monthly, so that's really useful, but I'll take this off for the flip through. So we're doing May, and I guess I'll just do a very quick flip through until May. But yes, this was May, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you might know this, but I use the sidebar here for habit tracking, and I used to do it for a weekly focus, so what I want to focus on that week, but that wasn't very functional. And then I started using it for future tasks because I don't set up my weekly ahead of time. But ever since I started using the sidebar as a habit tracker, I really don't like doing both at once. I know that was something that I actually was looking forward to doing, using one space for multiple things, but I think it's just because I'm using the Sarasa pen, so it really smudges, with the Tombow dual brush pen. Which is, it feels like a stupid problem, but I don't know. I think I like the look of this clean habit tracker, and I'll stop doing this for future tasks. And I think I'll just dump them on the relevant weekly spreads, and not, worry too much about setting it up only at the beginning of the week. I think that's just hindering the functionality. But yeah, this is how my monthly spread is looking at the end of the month, and haven't moved this, but this is to show me which day I'm on, and it's a Sunday now. Yeah, I haven't changed much about how I used this. I marked some spending. It's just with a $sign marker, and then the actual amount itself is on the weekly spread. And then the total expenses for the month is down here, but I've just covered that up for now. And I have my completed projects here on the bottom to help me remember that, oh yeah, I actually did some big things this month, so I don't kind of lose track of them and feel like I didn't really do anything. I still use the same symbols for events that are completed or canceled. I am thinking about changing that because I found that it doesn't really do much. Like, I usually just read the item itself and I know what it is. So starting with this month, I think I'll start doing that. I have these items that I had filled in ahead of time, so they do still have the symbols, but I don't mind. I just started, for example, a few things that I had to schedule recently. I just wrote it down without the symbol, just the item itself, and that works fine. We'll see if, it turns out the symbol was useful all along, but I think I'll be fine. Either way, things are the same. And this is this month, and as you can see, I haven't written anything down on the sidebar because I really want this clean tracker. I think it'll look really nice. But yeah, I did start using the Tombow dual brush pens, and this is new, and I'm still getting used to them, but I'm enjoying them so far. You'll see more of it in later pages. So let's go to the May weeklies. I guess I've never really shown the April weeklies because I hadn't started doing videos yet, but this is just a quick flip through, I guess. Or I meant the April weeklies. I don't know if I said May or April, but here we go. This is when May started, and I've already explained in other videos that I use this sticky note for items that just don't fit or are supposed to be for the next week, or I have to note something down really quickly without being able to flip through to the right spread. But yeah, I just keep them on the relevant weeks, and I have the date-specific items on the side here. And this is back when I was still using the sidebar on the weekly spreads for my habit tracker, but I've stopped doing that. And again, if you don't know my system, I just assign separate categories for these columns and use them as needed. I don't use the dates up here. I just use the sidebar for the date-specific items, and I follow the column that correspond with the dates that are on this tiny calendar, and that's working well for me. And like I said, I use these magnetic bookmarks to mark where I am. And this is my current week because we have just started June on the Saturday. And this week I started using the Tombow dual brush pen to make these columns bolder because again, I've already mentioned this in another video, but it was getting difficult for me to see, if this was a Saturday or Sunday or Friday. But yeah, this is working well. I used the color 451 and it's light enough that it's not obtrusive, and it's helped a lot with knowing at a glance that this is a Tuesday or whatever. I guess the Tuesday is easier to see, but if this is a Thursday. I think I'll use a different color next time. I think this one is good because it's a gray, and what I'm hoping for is for it to look like it was always part of the design of the book instead of something added on, which isn't like a big deal, but I do want to see what it looks like with the gray. This week, what I use this for is for open tasks. So again, I've mentioned that I was having trouble differentiating between completed tasks and open tasks because I used to do dots for open tasks, and I don't know, it wasn't distinct enough from the crosses. So this week I started using the dual brush pen for open tasks, and my worry was that it would be inconvenient because I often note down tasks whenever, I don't always have the brush pen and reach. And in the beginning, it was kind of annoying that I had to reach for the brush pen every time I would note down a task. But I think I've just gotten used to it, and I don't know, it's kind of fun. And it's, still just a gray brush pen, but I think it's working out, and I'm sure if it gets too annoying, I'll just, dump it. But what I have decided to do is, because I'm going to do gray for the sidebar columns, I think I'll do a fun color for the open tasks. Also because it makes it more distinct from the crosses, since the crosses are in black. Because I'm just using the pen. So I think I'll actually use maybe this color. This will be fun. Or maybe if I want it to be, more muted, I can use this, which is what I had been using for the habit tracker. And I've changed to this blue one. Just because I want it to change when I'm changing months. But also I kind of like it better, to be honest. And I think this is a little too bold for the tracker, and I'll just use that here for little dots. The other reason I wanted to use maybe this color is because I used this in my reading journal, which I'll show you later, but it's a little too bold for me for what I was using it for, and I didn't really like it. And so I decided I'll just stick to lighter colors for that kind of use. And since the dots for the open tasks are, tiny dots, I'm like, I don't think I'll mind bolder colors for that. So I think I will try this for the open tasks in future. But yeah, those are all of my May weekly spreads. Maybe I should show you one more time. They're not, that interesting because they're pretty functional and minimal, but I don't know. To me, it looks pretty satisfying, so I hope it will be for you as well. Yeah, so I don't use the sticky note every week, just when the spread gets full, I guess. And yeah, last week I wasn't the most productive, or, I wasn't the most active, whatever. I wasn't feeling well. So I didn't need it, and this week I have yet to need it, and I don't think I will because I still have this whole column, but we'll see. I have been doing these weekly plan with me's, and I have a couple videos up like that if you want to check them out, and I'll link that in the description and maybe one in the cards. But I do have a video coming up for this week, so I'll get more into that in that video. But let's go to the daily pages. Again, if you don't know, I assign different categories for each month because I don't daily journal or whatever. I just use these for notes for projects, my reading journal, whatever else that I need. So I'll go through all the categories as I flip through them. But this turning the page spread is just it's just a key, and I don't really need one mostly. Like some of these are symbols that I've used for a really long time, but a lot of these are the index markers from the yearly index, and these do get pretty detailed sometimes. So I just have some of them here, and I marked out the number of boxes for easy layout planning, and I mentioned this, but I definitely picked this up from Rocky Scissors Co. And it was really helpful. So the April pages are what I call daily logs, things like wish lists, expense logs. I have like a big item to-do list that I want to do in the future sometime, like cleaning out a whole closet or whatever. But yeah, I actually haven't really used this too much. The only thing I've really added is this Tombow dual brush pen swatch spread, which I know a lot of people have done. I actually titled this pen swatch, and I should actually also swatch my other pens on here. That will be fun. But yeah, nothing new in the daily logs. Let's see. Right. Okay. So this is my first category of projects, I guess, and my notes for them. There are a few pages here that I want to keep private, so I'm just skipping those. But yeah, this was a project that I was keeping track of, and some big items that I have to do for it, and it's completed now. There's just one document that I still have to deal with. And so what I had been doing is using 3 months for this first kind of projects, and whenever I'm working on project A of this kind, I write in May, and I've only been chipping away at it, so there aren't too many pages for that. That's pretty much it. And when I'm working on project B, I write it in June, and this is just a timeline for it that I have to refer to now and then, and I did mark that as a reference page in the yearly index. And then whenever I have to note something down for this project, I go here. And this has been working really well in keeping all of my notes on one project together and not having them be in separate places throughout the book. Someone commented in my functional system video that that's also a problem that they were having, and that's why rings worked really well for them. So I'm really glad that I'm not the only one who had this problem. But yeah, just as a little update, it is working really well here. I'm able to keep all of my notes together, and there are some items where I didn't really think of it when I was moving in. I expected to just only have a few things I have to note down for that project, and that happened here in July, but I've had to continue those notes on a different page, like, at the end of this section, which I guess was the problem I was having in my old notebooks that I was hoping to solve, but I'm not too worried about it. It's still better than it had been, and I think what I'll do moving forward is I have these, shorter notes here in July. Whenever I know that it's a project that I'm currently working on and will have tons of notes on, I'll continue that, on the May or June sections, which are supposed to be for my current ongoing project that I'll go back to. And then from then on, it won't be, separated from the rest of the notes. I hope this is making some sense. Basically, the idea is for the July pages, I'm taking preliminary notes, and then whenever I'm actually starting the project, I can start taking notes in the current project sections. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, these July pages haven't changed much. I think I did dip in and out, whenever I have to take notes for them, but nothing super new. I actually can't remember when I added some of these, so maybe you have seen these before. But whatever I added, I'm pretty sure it was only a couple pages at most. So maybe we're coming up on some of the newer pages. Yeah, so here, this is the note that I had to make, but I couldn't fit it in the original page. So I've just noted down what page it was before. So let's just take a look at that, for example, or as an example. Yeah. All right. So I had this note right here, and what I had initially migrated into this book, I think spanned maybe until the second page, and then I had to write down more notes, and I filled that in, and I had already had a different note starting here, so I had to continue on this page, and this is quite a few pages, so that's kind of the problem, having to flip back and forth, but whatever. I just did an arrow, wrote down the date, since that's the only kind of page number that I have here, and that's where it continues, and I also make sure to note down where this note started. Yeah, so it hasn't been too big of a problem. It's definitely better than it had been in my old notebooks, and like I said, what I'll do is when I properly continue this project, I will write down all of my notes in my current project section, and they won't be broken up anymore. So it's all fine. Yeah. And that's it for this section, this first category of projects. And as you can see, my July section only has a few pages left. So I am a little worried about that, but like I said, there are always more sections and more pages, and we'll worry about that when we need to. All right, so August is my second type of projects, and this is a reference page, some instructions on what I have to do when I get to a certain stage. There are a couple more reference pages here that I don't think I want to share, and I have yet to really work on anything for this category this month, so I haven't added anything yet. I think I have notes for a project that's coming up. No, I don't. Do I have notes? Yes, I do, but I don't really want to show that. I might actually not ever show this category of projects, but yeah, it's here. All right. Now to my reading journal, which is September. So this is my to-read list, and originally I was going to cross out the books that I had read, but I want to see that I actually knocked off some titles from this list, and I want to see what those titles are, so I decided to highlight them. But this was before I had my Tombow brush pens, and I just used a regular highlighter, and when I did get these, I decided to use, I think it was this one, which was a dark gray. This is the N45, and I used that here, and I really like this. It looks like I blacked it out, but you can actually still read the title and author, and you probably can't see that on camera, but you can, and I really like that. And I've only knocked out one title from this list, mostly because I was reading other books that weren't on this list, but yeah, I really like that. I don't think I care that it's not uniform or whatever. I'm not super stressed about that. But yeah, this is my reading journal this month. And what I usually do is I have the title up here. I have some metadata over here, like the author, genre, when it was published, the format, if I read an ebook, how many pages, when I started, when I finished, and my rating system. And I have such recency bias with books and my thoughts on them, so I note down the date that I rated it, and then oftentimes in the future I go back to it and I'm just aghast at when I rated it, and then I put down a new date and a new rating, and then probably in the future I'll change my mind again. Doesn't really matter. I've mentioned this before, but this is the closest thing I do to, journaling my thoughts specifically. So they can get pretty long, mostly when I'm filling out my reading journal as I'm reading. But when I kind of read something in one sitting or just really quickly and I don't have time to fill out my reading journal in between, they do get pretty short because my thoughts are already concise, And I do write down quotes that I've highlighted in the book or the ebook, and they're usually in these little boxes, and I note down what page they're from. I don't always have quotes that I want to copy into here, but sometimes I do. Sometimes they are related to my thoughts specifically. Like here, I think the section over here is specifically about this quote. But yeah, I don't include all of the quotes that I've highlighted or anything, and oftentimes I don't really highlight anything when they're, really light books that I read in one sitting or whatever. But I don't know, I think I just like the look of these boxes in my reading journal, so sometimes when I remember, I remind myself to try to highlight some quotes that I like so that I can include them here. So here, for example, is a book that I finished really quickly in one sitting, so I don't have, super long thoughts on it, just my thoughts at the end. So it just takes up this one page instead of a whole spread. I'm also getting used to this new size because before this I had been using a much smaller book. I think it's an A6. It's actually this one here. And I used to fill out like pages and pages and pages of thoughts on the book that I'm reading. But I think it's because they're such tiny pages. And I don't know, something about seeing just one whole spread kind of helps me just get my thoughts together. I don't know. It's been much more concise than I would expect based on my past experiences with reading journals. But yeah, actually this book, I did have to continue on a different page. So I took a break about 3/4 of the way in and read a different book, which you can see here. And then I went back to this book and continued on this page. This I don't mind, as opposed to, my notes that get broken up across the book, mostly because I don't really go back to my reading journal to, reread my thoughts. If I do go back, it'll be for my reading or the metadata, so I don't mind. But yeah, I did have to do that here. I think it'll be more annoying when I am in a reading slump or something and I start a book and stop and then pick up another one and then do it, a million times and then go back again. And it'll be annoying for my reading journal, but I don't know, so far it's fine. But yeah, this was also a reread, and that's why I don't have too many thoughts on it because I've already kind of processed it once before. Yeah, this is another book. This was a 5-star book. Actually, another thing is I do read a lot of short stories often, and sometimes they'll only take up one page, or at least that was my assumption, but I guess that's not true because this was a short story. It was, I guess, a novella, but it was just so good, and it took up a whole page, and I think I could have kept writing, but I don't know, I'm sure my hand was tired. Oh, this was the spread on a series that I've been meaning to read, and I just note down, when I read this one and this one and this one, and I haven't continued yet, but I'm hoping to fill out when I read the rest. More books, another reread, that's why it's short. This was another short story that was just okay. That's also why it's short. This was actually another reread, but I really liked this book, and I hadn't remembered a lot of it and had so many thoughts on it, and that's why that is pretty long. Another short book that I didn't love, so that's pretty short as well. I mean, I don't mind that they're short or long or whatever, just kind of trying to explain my reading journal system, and I hope that makes sense. Another book and another book. Yeah, I guess the length doesn't really tell you much about how good it was, because, you know, these books were pretty good, but it's very short in my reading journal. I think it's just that I read them like in one sitting, so. Right, this is my monthly spread, wrap up, whatever, that I do at the end of each month. And I used to do this at the beginning of each month. Like I would set up started, continued, finished, and then whatever else, and then fill it out as I go. But I found that I guess it's just more convenient to do it at the end of the month, because I would know what the genres I read that month is. It's not like I have a set, you know, group of genres that I want to read for the month. I guess that's the thing. I never know what I'm going to read for the month. So what I decided to do here is have started, continued, and finished. This is because I wanted to note down if I was picking something up after I started it in a different month. That's why there's continued, which is maybe a confusing, you know, heading. But yeah, if I'm continuing something that I stopped reading in a different month, I guess I put it there. And then started and finished. Actually, I guess I forgot to fill in the finished portion. Let's see. All right, so this is the thing. I don't like using such a bold color apparently on the spread, because I am still getting used to the Tombow dual brush pen, and I have really poor control of it. And I can't figure it out. So I found that using the more, you know, light colored ones is just more forgiving. But we'll see how this goes. I don't think this will go well, honestly. All right. So I finished all of the 12 books that I started. So that's all of it. Okay. I think that's fine. I don't know. I don't care. All right. So the idea is if I started 12 and I finished 11, for example, then, you know, you'll be able to see it. Or if I started 12 but I finished 13, and that's because I continued one from my previous month, or, you know, a different month, whatever, you'll be able to tell. And I really liked that I was able to tell in my previous reading journals. So that's why that's there. And then I have some genres here, or just really, I guess, categories, whatever. Like translated fiction isn't a genre, but I do have it there, or, you know, short story. But the rest are genres like fantasy or literary fiction or romance. So some books fall into multiple categories, and I think I stressed too much about that, and I don't care anymore. Sometimes they're both, you know, obviously it could be a short story and fantasy or whatever. And then I have the format here, which is ebook and hardback or paperback. And these days I mostly read ebooks. They're just more convenient for me. So everything I read this month was an ebook, actually. And then I have the star ratings. So this is actually something new that I started this month. Usually I just have the actual books themselves and then the star rating under the books. But I really like the way this looks, or the way this functions, I guess, because it helps me see if I was having a good reading month. And mostly I was. Most of the books I read were 4 stars, and I do have, you know, 0.5s or whatever in my rating. Let's see if I can find any. Here. I have 3.5, and the way I note that down is I put down 4 stars and then I cross off the last one, kind of like dividing them in half, I guess. Whatever. This means 3.5. But when I note that down at the end of the month, I always round down. So 3.5 would count as a 3-star read. And yeah, I'm also very, I don't know if picky is the word, but it's very hard to get a 5-star read in my rating system. It's really only reserved for perfect books, I guess. So 3-star reads are great. And 2 stars aren't like the worst either, but they weren't great. They were just good, I guess. And then 1 star are the ones that I hated. But I didn't have any 1-star reads this month, so that's good. And I had a pretty good reading month. So I really, really like adding this here. And finally, just some final totals down here. Total books, 12 total pages, and this is by the hundreds. And I filled out all 22 boxes in this section because I read about 2,200 something pages. I don't know if I want to keep this because it's not really that easy to understand or like see. Like, you know, I see this whole bar and I don't know what that means for the number of pages, and it's not like, you know, I need to know, but it's fun to look back on. And what I used to do was have a graph that I fill out every day on how many pages I read. But I found it really hard to keep track of because, you know, if you start on page 62 and then finished a 312 page book, and then you have to count. I mean, I don't mind counting, but it's just not something that I can note down really quickly. And oftentimes I'm reading at the end of the night and, you know, it's like 2 a.m. and I have to note down what page I'm on or count how many pages I read that day, whatever. It was annoying. And this isn't as fun as the graph, so I'll think about what I will do for my page counts or whatever. But this is what it is for this month. And then the number of authors that I read, because I do like to, you know, if I read something that I really liked, I'll just check out other books by the same author, as I'm sure a lot of people do. But yeah, that's why usually the number of authors and the number of books differ. Oh, I wanted to underline the 5-star books that I read, and I had 2 of them this month. But again, I don't know, I wasn't loving the bold colors, so while I did do that, I also just highlighted the books themselves with this lighter color, and it definitely smudges the ink because I'm using the Sarasa gel pen. The thing is, I also use the Sarasa dry, but I'm trying to, I guess, finish up the stock of refills for just the regular Sarasa gel pens. So it's a while yet until I can use the Sarasa dry, but I do have it. I was turned on to it by Leela Bjorn Stationery, I think is the name of the channel, but they had a video on, you know, good and bad pens, I think, but I definitely recommend their channel and that video specifically because it was very useful and it made me realize that I really, really wanted a Sarasa dry gel pen, and I did get it and it was great, but I've yet to use it. These are books in June, so this isn't this month, but yeah, this is what it looks like when I'm still in the middle of reading something. Only, you know, my initial thoughts, and then we'll see how that gets on. October is something. Oh, no, this is still my reading journal, right? So I had allocated September and October for my reading journal, knowing that I have a lot of thoughts usually. But it's only been 1 month, and as you can see, I am basically at the end of September already. So I don't know how this will turn out. I'll need to overflow into more sections, and I mean, I've already said it a million times at this point, but there's no way I'll run out of pages in the Cousin. But if I'm to keep up this, you know, reading journal in the same pace, which I probably won't because I did read quite a bit this month. I'll burn through these monthly sections quite quickly, but we'll see, and I'll update you next month and all the coming months. Hopefully this flip through has been interesting. I don't know, I don't have that many decorative pieces or anything, so they're just scribbles writing, but do let me know if this is not really interesting or if it was helpful. Whatever your thoughts are, would really appreciate that. This is another project that I'm working on, and this is a long-term project, and this is a schedule. And I had said in my functional system that I wasn't anticipating using this section too much because a lot of it is digital, a lot of the work is digital. But it turns out that I am using these pages a lot. It really helped, honestly, with getting my thoughts together. And I also use this for keeping track of progress instead of on my sheets, which I always hate, pulling up because it's a pain to find the the specific sheet for this, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I've been using this, and it's really, really helpful. And I'm glad that I set aside this section for this project. Right, okay, so December is some miscellaneous notes, and I'm gonna skip this section because there's some stuff that I want to keep private, but I've only used like a few pages here. I think the miscellaneous notes will definitely last me in the whole year. If not, stay unused, and then, worst comes to worst, I run out of pages, I can always use those pages as well. And I have not used these 2025 pages because they are for overflow, and I've yet to need them. But as you can see, I might need them soon. But we'll see. So these are all still empty. I still have not decided what I want to use these end pages for. I would still really appreciate any ideas. Yeah, I really want to use them functionally, but I really don't know what I'll use them for. Maybe I should have used these for my to-read list, but they're also very small. I don't think I would have been able to fit in, a whole title and author in each box. So, I don't know. Haven't decided yet. Hopefully something will come to me. I really want them to be functional, or at least just fun to fill out, I guess. Yeah. So that's how my cousin is looking at the end of May. I guess because there's, like I said, not a lot of decorative elements. There's not much to show you except maybe for the reading journal, just because there are boxes. But hopefully that was somewhat interesting. I usually like seeing minimal pages. They seem very satisfying to me. So maybe this is also for you. But yeah, definitely let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if this was at all interesting, and tell me if it is not. And I'll do another weekly plan with me soon, as we enter into June. I hope you guys have had a good week, and thank you so much for watching.